Okay, before we begin, let me clarify something. An LRT is a low rank tank. Any tank yokai that are below A rank are LRTs. Now let's start. LRTs are pretty important in Yokai Watch 3. Obviously the best tanks in the game are higher ranked, the likes of Cubit, El Shakador, Walden and the Phoenix. However, some teams just can't afford to use their rank slots in these high rankers, so they have to improvise by using LRTs. Some of these LRTs are amazing on their own, and are even better thanks to their low ranking. Meanwhile, there are some LRTs that you really should just avoid. Today we'll be discussing both ends. We'll talk about 5 great LRTs and 5 bad LRTs. The bad list isn't an unviable list per se, as though tanks can still do a decent job as tanks, aside from the last one. They're just yokai you really don't want to use unless you really like them. With that out of the way, let's begin. Our first great LRT we'll be discussing today is Krunger. I already made a video about the pox snakes and why they're so good, but in summary, Krunger's skill Jar Guard is mistranslated and actually doubles the effects of her guard. You can run her with Shielding Soul and she can tank both ends of the attacking spectrum insanely well. She can also put pressure on the opponent with her wide-reaching ultimate, making her really just good in all facets of battle. Watch the other video for more info. Let's talk about our second great LRT, another yokai I've talked about in the past, it's Terrapotta. It's been a while though, so let's recap. Terrapotta has 3 great qualities that make him shine as a tank. His brilliant bulk, top tier support skill and double item slot. It's pretty self-explanatory why having good defenses makes you a good tank. For his skill, it prevents revival of any kind from both sides. This not only makes yokai like Fukurukuju and Altaria a lot worse, it also shuts down yokai like the Phoenix, Her Excellency and Unsheltered, who we'll talk about in a second, as their ability to revive on death is one of their best qualities. Phoenix especially benefits from this as his skill fully restores his HP, and he has the highest HP in the entire game. The fact that magic damage doesn't count as the target's defense means Phoenix is one of the single best magic tanks in the game, and hell, he can even tank physical hits fine with a Shielding Soul despite his horrendous defense stat. Being able to basically have 2 lives is one of the reasons Phoenix is so stupid overpowered, and Terrapotta can really easily shut this down. He especially counters Phoenix because he has 2 slots, meaning you can hold the golden combo of Blown Stop a Soul and Shielding Soul, and since Phoenix is a magic attacker, he can take his damage very well too. Now Blown Stop is also an LRT, but is much worse than Terrapotta. He still has a niche, but even then he isn't great. He keeps the amazing skill, though he only has 1 item slot. He also has an Explosions ultimate which can be helpful, but you kinda want him alive to keep that support skill going. Castellis the first is a better exploding tank, and Castellis the third is a better exploding LRT. Just use them. Use Terrapotta instead if you still want the support. However, this also doesn't mean you can't make the best use of these revivers yourself, but you can build around it. Terrapotta can also switch out the Blown Stop a Soul for a Sinister Soul to be an even better anti-meta support, so overall he's a very versatile and incredible tank. Our third great LRT is Unsheltered. Just coming off Terrapotta, it's important to mention that Unsheltered is hard countered by him as he has the revival skill. This totally shuts him down and he really isn't great without it, but he can still do decent. He has really good defense and workable HP, can run Shielding Soul as all tanks would, and he has a ultimate as a fallback in case he gets too low, and he can use the stat buff that comes with the tank things even better. He doesn't revive with full HP unlike the Phoenix, so he can even use this upon revival to heal back up to full, or at least back on it high enough to continue taking damage. The thing that makes Unsheltered really shine though, is his being Mysterious Tribe. Tanks that are brave or mysterious are especially amazing because those are the 2 unities that are the best in the game. Most mono tribe teams were either brave or mysterious simply because the damage boost is too good. That doesn't stop me from using my mono slippery team in almost every battle though. Hey, if you fight a player named Badud with an Obaga profile picture, that's me. So if you win, you can brag to your friends and they will not care. Just don't share my team please, that's not for YouTube. Anyway, Unsheltered can fit into mono mysterious teams extremely easily, and is easily your best option for an LRT in that tribe. But how about a brave LRT? Well, his name is BBQville. BBQville has a similar skill to Unsheltered, except it triggers on low HP rather than on death, so it isn't as good. I'm pretty sure it recovers more HP though. This also means he isn't hard countered by Terrapotta unless he's running a Sinister Soul. It just means you have to be a bit more careful to make sure he doesn't die before it triggers. He also has the same ultimate, but he can make even better use of it because he's got a really solid strength stat. BB is a lot more of an offensive tank than Unsheltered, and while Beat isn't the strongest attack out there, it does have some guard break on it, so it can be pretty helpful. BBQ is one of the 2 best LRTs in Brave, no contest, and he can work on a lot of teams. Mochismo is also an amazing Brave LRT, but he's more specialised as his skill works best on crit teams. His skill works best with those because the crit boosters boost crit rate for all yokai, which means he's more likely to take hurts from the opponent to trigger a skill. He can help fill out a unity as well, since crit teams love to use Gleam and Cao Cao, and none of the 3 crit boosting yokai are brave, so it can be nice to have him. However, BB Cool is better overall in my opinion, since he fits on more team archetypes. The final great LRT I'd like to talk about is Pickpocket. Pickpocket really isn't the yokai you'd expect to be amazing, but they kinda are. Their bulk isn't fantastic, but it's usable. They have pretty decent spirit as well. With a shielding soul, they can definitely take some hits. They're also immune to crits, so it's best to use them on crit teams. If you do use them on crit teams, remember that Glumdango, one of the 3 crit boosters, is also eerie. You can't get a second one without trading or save editing, and since he's a once per save yokai, I doubt people will be willing to trade him. The more reasonable choice would be to just run 1 Glumdango and 2 Pickpockets as your tanks, then you still get the eerie unity and the 2 tanks that every team should have. Pickpocket is even better as a tank thanks to their fast charge and drain ultimate that can hit 6 tiles. This is pretty much the only way they can use their spirit stat, as Absorb is pretty weak, but it's still a good use of it. Tanks like Pickpocket, Shrook and Heal that can use their ultimates to keep themselves alive and allies alive longer are really nice to have, since the tank's whole job is to keep their team alive. Pickpocket pulls this off really well in my opinion. There are definitely more LRTs that I could have talked about here, but I only had room for 5. Swelton, Shrook, the other pot snakes, Garuma, Ethiopian Football, Impasse and Noah, etc, etc. Those are just the 5 best ones in my opinion. But what are the worst of the worst? Let's start with Judge Brick. Nobody likes Judge Brick. He's a really boring design in my opinion, but god is he awful and competitive. Out of the 5 I'm about to talk about, he's probably the best, but he still kinda sucks. His defensive stats are actually pretty great. He has the 5th highest defense in the game, only behind Earn Fulfilled, Venoctobot, Sky Sherryman and Cubit, tied with the Castellius Max. Yes, he has a higher defense stat than Walled-In. That is insane to me. Walled-In and even Impasse and Noah are superior though. Why is that? They actually have a skill. Judge Brick's skill boosts his defense whenever yokai scatters money due to an Inspirit. This is an absolute waste of a skill. You have to use a whole ass team slot in a yokai who can Inspirit for scattering money. One of the worst Inspirits in the game. The best yokai to use this with is probably Neggplant thanks to its being his ultimate, as well as being a good tank for Inspirit teams already. But you don't need 2 tanks out at once, and with this you would have 2 tanks as Neggplant and Judge Brick. Inspirit has so many better tanks. Retreater, Eusebian Football, Tyrad, I could go on. Outside of this, Judge Brick is nowhere near worth using over Impasse as a B-rank tough tank, because Impasse can run Blown as Tapa Soul and still have the effective shielding soul thanks to his skill. Judge Brick is worthless. Next on the shit list is Brocade. Great defense and HP. That's all he has. He's super slow, doesn't have good strength or spirit, and even his move timer sucks. His ultimate is fine, but that won't do shit against magic attackers. I suppose his Spirit is pretty good, but Purifying really isn't that hard. You just suck. Please, take that to heart. Go fight a pufferfish and see how you do. Because if that pufferfish is Blockade, it really won't be too hard. He also has that standard as his skill, which doesn't have that much in the long run. It's useful in sudden death, but I would be genuinely surprised to see a Blockade last that long. The worst part? Ledballoon is just better in every single way. Better stats all around, and a different ultimate that he can actually make use of thanks to his new decent strength. It'll charge pretty quickly due to his C ranking, and it's unavoidable so it can really help pressure the opponent if need be. I'm not saying Ledballoon is great, but he's much better than Blockade will ever be. Our third awful LRT is Unfulfilled. Unfulfilled is basically a reverse Phoenix. He's the second lowest HP in the game, only beaten by the gimmicky Starry Knuckle, and the highest defense in the game. He has a skill that makes low damage hits do no damage at all. With his astronomical defense, you'd think it'd be really hard to break through and kill him if he's guarding, right? Well, 2 words. Magic Pierce. Even a weaker magic attacker like Kaleidoscope can break through Unfulfilled's pitiful 70 HP, and the defense stat doesn't affect magic, so his skill is pretty pointless. I see what they were going for here, but it just did not work out how they expected. Instead, Unfulfilled really shines as an attacker on switcheroo teams. This essentially turns his insane defense into insane strength, and both his attack and his ultimate disrupt their targets by moving them back or forward. Just make sure he'll always stay behind your tank, or else he'll die to anything. If you can't use an A rank slot and add to the bone, which is understandable because of Koalian being A rank as well, Unfulfilled can do you good as an attacker. Just make sure you have a Grumples or Returner there as well, because his speed is horrific. Even if you can afford the slot for Sad to the Bone, it's still probably worth picking up Unfulfilled for your team. Just don't try to use him as a normal tank on a normal team, it won't do you well at all. Our fourth bad LRT is Badud. There are 2 ways to use Badud, and neither of them are particularly good. The first way is a standard tank with Shielding Soul. His bulk is worse than Blockade despite being B rank, and he quite literally is one of the worst skills in the game, Pompadour. This makes him immune to headbutt attacks. Congratulations, you successfully counter Kapunki, Horn of Plenty, and other bad dudes. All these are very uncommon yokai, especially Kapunki, but they're the only slightly viable yokai with headbutt moves. So you basically have no skill, mid defenses, and a decent strength stat, which is wasted on Headbuster and low speed, so it really won't help much. If your tank needs to run alongside Grumples to be the most useful, you're doing something wrong. Even his ultimate is really bad. This guy does not catch a break as a standard tank. As for the other way to use him, you can run him with his unique item, the Nail Bat. This gives him plus 60 strength and minus 30 defense. This turns him into a lot more of a bulky offensive yokai, but you still kinda want to run him with Grumples because of how bad the accuracy on attack is. I'd prefer to run this over the standard tank set, but if you're going to put in that much work for a B rank bulky attacker, just use Garuma. He has better bulk and a much more usable skill. The final awful LRT we'll talk about is Obaga. This yokai is absolutely abhorrent, one of the worst yokai I've ever covered on this channel. A really bad revenge skill, really bad HP for a tank, and below average defense for a tank. He has an offensive ultimate which is nice, but it only hits the back row. What's the point if you're putting in the effort to line this up, if it's only a bit of chip that won't really matter in the long run? OBG has pretty bad strength, so it won't do that much anyway. And he's one of those tanks that just doesn't do anything other than be a tank. At least ledballoon has a strong ultimate and good strength. At least Earn and Fulfill can work really well on Switcheroo and use his ultimate to good potential. At least Badud can do good damage with Grumples. OBG has nothing. They're genuinely near unusable. You'd be better off using What Everest, and if you talk to me on Discord you know how much I rip on What Everest. There's another addition to my short but fruitful and viable list. And there you go. There are a lot more good LRTs than bad ones. I'd argue with ledballoon is actually pretty good, just not as great as some other tanks like Lavalord. Even Lavalord outclasses them, like. If you get outclassed by Lavalord, you're not doing anything right. There are more bad LRTs that I could have talked about, like Chilka Cow, Vigifant and Tuffant, Sumodon and Caecilius II, but again, 5 is enough. I might make a part 2 if you're well interested though, so let me know what you think in the comments and have a good day.